All right, so I finished 13 books last month. There are a few of them right here. The rest of them were on my phone. And I gotta say, having a hernia helps tremendously. You can get so much reading done from a hospital bed when you're just like sitting there, like too disinterested in anything else to move. I do highly recommend it. Not something like a hernia that's gonna be like kind of painful for recovery, but something that ideally will maybe put you in the hospital for like an extended period of time, but nothing too serious where you can't read and like focus on the book that you're reading. I have 13 books to cover in this video, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on each one. They are linked down below in the video description though, and actually the very first book, I'm doing a complete breakdown of that book for my membership site called The Stairway to Wisdom, and I'm doing that because it's actually a pretty damn good book. It's called Be Nobody by Lama Marut, not his real name, and it's a book of Eastern philosophy about the self. And so obviously you've got pretty much everybody trying to assert themselves in some way, trying to be somebody, assert their identity. And what he says is that like it's totally backwards. Like the idea of trying to be somebody is really like what you're actually doing is you're trying to be somebody else. Better than that, find out who you are and actually make that effort. Like turn your attention inwards, or better yet, be nobody, because after all, nobody's perfect. It's also not a perfect book. I actually kind of found his writing style a little tiny bit annoying towards the end, but he does have some really spectacular things to say, and there were enough great things in that book that I had to do a full breakdown of it. So that will be going up on the 8th of September actually, and you can get a free trial to The Stairway to Wisdom down in the video description. But the second book was really good, and I've got it right here, and it is 10x It's Easier Than 2x by Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy. And I've read like 4 or 5 of Benjamin Hardy's books, and he's really spectacular. So this one, actually I do have 4 other breakdowns on Stairway to Wisdom of other books that he's written. Be Your Future Self Now. It's got a dumb title, but it's a really good book. And so this one is about making insane progress in a very small amount of time. The way he puts it is that almost everything you're doing right now is a distraction from that thing that will take you 10x, whatever that looks like to you in your business. It's primarily a business book for entrepreneurs, right? So it's about refining again, what exactly you're focusing on in your business to make the fastest steps forward possible. And what he says is important to realize, and I agree, is that he says that what got you here will keep you here. You have to start thinking differently, and you have to be willing to part ways with everything that's not 10x. So everything in your life that's not taking you 10x literally has to go. And so I thought it was a phenomenal book, and I'm gonna do a full breakdown of this book for The Stairway to Wisdom. I don't have a set release date. I've got a few more coming up. Actually, there's another book on this list that's gonna be appearing there. I'm doing a full breakdown of it pretty soon. That's coming up. I think that's like book number 8 or something on this list. But seriously, 10x Easier Than 2x. It's probably my favorite Benjamin Hardy book so far. The next book is called Success is a Choice by John C. Maxwell. He's a leadership expert, and I've been reading him for years and years. I think his career started in like the 70s or 80s. Like, he's been around a long time. He was personal friends with people like Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, which is like the most fun to say. Zig Ziglar. I love it. I'm actually reading a Ziglar book right now that's really good. Yeah, it's got sort of like a mouthful of like the title is a lot to say. It's Master Successful Personal Habits by Zig Ziglar, but it's actually a phenomenal book, and so is this one too. It's actually more than I expected, so I recommend this one absolutely. It's got a bunch of cool stories, and one of them in particular is the first person to climb Mount Everest, Sir Edmund Hillary, and the story is about when he was giving a speech after the first time that he tried to climb the mountain and failed. But the really cool thing that he said is that you, like the mountain, may have won this time, but I'm going to win eventually because you can't grow any bigger and I can. And I thought that was a pretty cool story. And like there's a whole his books are just full of these like leadership stories and parables and examples, and I mean that's what these types of authors do. Some of it can be sort of obvious advice, but sometimes that's exactly what we need. And when I started reading John Maxwell, I was like 19, 20, 21 years old, so like this is all new to me, right? Now if you're like in your 40s and 50s, you've been reading these personal development books for years, you've probably read something by him already, but at the same time, like you will have heard a lot of this stuff before, but someone who's just getting into it, it's going to be revelatory. So Success is a choice, but John C. Maxwell, highly recommend it. Next book on this list is We the Living by Ayn Rand. There's not a whole lot to say about this one. It's one of her first novels. I think it came before Anthem, which is one of my favorite books, and this is one of my least favorite books, at least out of like the 1,200 that I've read. I didn't like it. I fought through it because, like, just so I could say that I've read like all of her novels, which now I can. Like I've read all of them. The Fountainhead is one of my favorite books of all time. It's like truly spectacular. Just amazing. Atlas Shrugged is about 800 pages too long, but it's another like spectacular book as well. I recommend it like so highly. This one I just don't. It's boring, and I don't know. It's just she's not a good writer. At least in the later novels, like her bad writing was sort of like part of the deal, but the book itself was so great. Like her ideas were so powerful, you didn't care. This one, like the ideas are so weak that it's like you care about the writing, and it's just not there. So I didn't really like it. The next one though is called Make No Small Plans by Elliot Bisnow, and he's got a few co-authors, a bunch of them. There's a team of 4. There's Brett Leave, Jeff Rosenthal, and Jeremy Schwartz. And I've spoken about this book before, but Elliot Bisnow is basically, he started this international conference from nothing with these 3 friends of his. They had like no business experience whatsoever, had no idea what they were doing. They just started cold calling local business people that they viewed as successful, and they're like, hey, you want to get in a room together and like maybe we can learn and like share stuff with each other. And a few people said yeah, and then a couple years later, well actually like several years later, it turned into like this, like they made it into this huge event with like presidents and astronauts and like super famous musicians and like just elite level business people, all coming to Summit Event Series, which is their conference, and like they bought a mountain. Anyway, it's just wild. The book's really, really good. You can finish it pretty quickly, and like it's story driven. Like there's a narrative behind it. There's like business lessons sort of strewn. There you go, in the middle. But it's not a challenging read, but it's exciting. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Okay, so this next one, I finished it on my phone. It's called The Power of Regret by Daniel Pink, and I was surprised by how good this one was, but I really shouldn't have been, because Daniel Pink is like one of the premier nonfiction authors around. He's written some really great books. I've read Drive by him a few years ago, and he's a really, really good author. But I was interested in the subject of regret, and he did not let me down. What he actually did is he conducted this like worldwide regret survey where people would submit like their biggest regrets in life, and he like, I forget how many people they had submitting, but it was like thousands. I want to say tens of thousands, but from like all over the world, like submitted their like biggest regrets, and he went through all the data and he sort of divided them into these 4 basic categories. So you've got like boldness regrets, which are say you didn't ask out this guy one time, and then you see that he got married to this other woman, and like you wonder what if, like that's, and you have this major regret. So that's a boldness regret. And then there's connection regrets as well. You let like a really good friendship slide away without sort of maintaining it. So there's that, and then say the person dies or something, and like it's they're lost forever. Like what if? That's a big one. There's foundation regrets, like having to do with education and sort of stability, survival type stuff. Like I should have gotten that degree. I should have went for that job or applied for that position. That type of stuff. And the 4th category is moral regrets. Like you've actually like done something wrong or immoral that you think it's wrong, and like you've always regretted it. You can think of your own examples there. But the thing about regret that a lot of people don't take the time to think about is that regret is supposed to make us feel bad in order to change our actions in the present so we can have a different future. So like if you never regretted anything, then you would have no sort of no vantage point from which to sort of make decisions in the present. So like if you didn't have any sort of like the purpose of these boldness regrets is that like the next time you see someone who's like, you know, I want to go out on a date with that person, like the next time, like you feel that regret and like, damn, that one got away, this one won't, and that type of thing. So it's a really well done book, just superbly researched and well written. Like Daniel Pink is like top-notch nonfiction author, and I like this one quite a bit. So this is my favorite book on the entire list. It's God Bless You, Mr. Rosewater by Kurt Vonnegut. Kurt Vonnegut, man. Okay, so I haven't read anything by him, any fiction by him in at least a few years, maybe like 10 years. I remember reading Cat's Cradle, I've read Slaughterhouse-Five, I've read Breakfast of Champions. I loved all of those books, but I just haven't read anything by him in a long time. And so I saw this in a bookstore in Toronto when I was there getting my hernia surgery. I picked it up as well as a few others that I saw, and I'm so glad that I did. So the story is basically, there's this guy, he's born into a wealthy family. He's got this $85 million fortune, basically, and it's all tied up in this charitable foundation that he runs. The idea is that it goes from family member to family member, and what the sort of villain, I guess, in the book is trying to do is prove that Mr. Rosewater is insane because he wants to give away all his money and help people. You know, so he's got like this is like such a Kurt Vonnegut book, man. It's exactly what you want from a Kurt Vonnegut novel. And then I also love Kurt Vonnegut's nonfiction as well. So he's got a book about writing. It's called Pity the Reader. That was really good. There's a collection of his commencement addresses that's really spectacular. It's one that I recommend all the time. It's called If This Isn't Nice, What Is? And it's just one of my favorite books of all time. Okay, so the next one I read in the hospital, it's called And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. It's a murder mystery. Basically 10 guests, they find themselves on this island in this house, sort of trapped basically by the weather. None of them can escape or leave or whatever. They start getting murdered one by one. What made this book even better for me was that, so I was in the hospital recovering from my hernia surgery. So what I sort of imagined was that all the patients that were going home each day were not actually discharged. They were like murdered instead. Made it sort of interesting. But the book's really good. Obviously, like I had no idea actually before this year how insanely popular Agatha Christie actually is. Like people have been like, this one sold like 100 million copies or something stupid like that. Like astonishing, just an astonishing number of copies sold. She's one of like the best-selling writers ever, and this one was pretty good. I hear that there are better books than this one, but I'm definitely going to read a few of them later on. Then another one that I read on my phone, it's called Billy Summers by Stephen King. This isn't a horror novel, and it really only has just one slightly supernatural thing that maybe happens, but it's basically a story of this assassin, this sniper. It's basically a one last job story, and of course everything goes wrong. I know that if I go into the plot, this video is going to like go on for longer than I want it to, but I will say on the book jacket it says something like "You'll never forget Billy Summers," and when I read that I was like, yeah, okay, sure. But this book is one that stays with you. It didn't take all that long to read, but it felt like so much happened. Like I had been through something by the end of it. It's really a great novel. Okay, so this next one is a collection of poems by one of my favorite poets of all time. We're talking Charles Bukowski. I always say he's right up there with John Milton, and of course it's kind of a joke because like they couldn't be more different. One is all about like drinking and fighting and horse racing, and the other one is John Milton. He's this like tough guy, but he's got like the eyes and the heart of a real poet, and he's smart as hell. Like he's a big time reader. Like he spent like equal time in the library as the bard. Like he's one of those guys that just has read everything, and he's one of my favorite poets. And I wouldn't say start with this one. There's much better collections of poems. Actually, there's one called The Essential Bukowski. You might want to start there. There's one called let's see, Burning in Water, Drowning in Flame. That one's really good. And then he's got a whole bunch of pretty good novels too. Post Office is one of his most famous ones. Anyways, Charles Bukowski, really good. Okay, so now we're getting to the end of the list here. It's The Answer by John Assaraf and Murray Smith. This guy, John, he worked on The Secret. Like he's featured in the movie associated with that book. Like that's where he's from. I've never read The Secret. I secretly, not so secretly, hate most of the type of people who have read it. I just feel like it gives a whole bunch of like easy answers. Like you're just supposed to like, you don't have to do anything or be valuable to the world. You can just like sit around with your legs crossed and like manifest a Ferrari or some shit. But this book is not like that. So the beginning is written by John basically, and it's got most of like the neuro like conditioning and reprogramming and visualization and like stuff like that, which sort of like it tends to like the new agey type thing. But the way he does it is much easier to read than like, you know, cross-leg manifest Ferrari type. Like it's actually something that I don't feel strange about doing. Like I do similar things. Like you ask anybody who's ever won an Olympic medal, like whether they've seen themselves on top of the podium before, like every single one of them has visualized that like intensely with all of their emotions and like seeing it like they felt it, like everything, like way before, like decades before it actually happened. And like they do it like the visualization every single day and things of that nature. And like, you know, it's fine when they do it, and but it's like, I don't know, it's different. And then the second part of the book is written by this guy, Murray Smith, and he's this like insanely successful, like conventionally successful business person. So you've got like the down to earth, tactical business strategies, and to like grow an actual dream business is the way they put it. And I was really impressed with this book overall. Saving one of the best for second last, it's Outlaw Journalist by William McKean. It's the biography of Hunter S. Thompson, one of my favorite writers of all time. This book is spectacular. It's not like a perfect biography, but it's so well worth reading. And if you don't know much about Hunter S. Thompson, if you just know him from like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, where it's like just drinking and doing a bunch of drugs, there's that. there is, but there's like so much more to it. And actually the back of the book really gets it. And I'll read it really quickly. This is from the Washington Post. This guy, Jonathan Yardley, he says he gets it all in: the boozing, the drugging, the histrionics, the womanizing, the violence, but also the intelligence, the loyalty, the inherent decency. And that is just so absolutely spot on with this biography, and it's so well worth reading. He's almost like a Charles Bukowski type, where like he's so much more than you would think he is at a first glance. Like, first off, he's extremely well read. He's read like everything, and what he used to do as a younger person was he would like copy out novels by like Faulkner and Fitzgerald and Hemingway just to feel what it felt like to write like them. And it's like he's read everything, and like there's so much more to him than his sort of public perception, and that's part of his problem, or it was part of his problem towards the end, where he just like he didn't know who he was supposed to be in public. Like he was supposed to be this guy who just like the life of the party, doing all the drugs, you know, all that stuff, but like he was always sort of living up to some like public expectations, and like who actually was this guy. So yeah, there's the guns and the drugs and the fireworks, and he shot his assistant with a hunting rifle one time, but he hated dishonesty and greed, and he was actually heartbroken about what the politicians were doing to America compared to what it could have been. I'm sure you've noticed how every biography gets like sad towards the end, like the main character dies. So like when that happens, it's like, man, I just want him to still be alive. Like he's one of those people that, like, you know, if I could bring back, like I would want to hang out with Hunter S. Thompson. I might have like a water or like a protein drink or something. You know, he can have whatever he wants. I just want this guy around because he's just like a good person. And yeah, I love this biography. Then the last book is like a super fast read. It's a science fiction book by Joe Haldeman. It's called There Is No Darkness. It's, of course, from Hamlet, Twelfth Night, There Is No Darkness But Ignorance. And I think he's got another book that's also has like a Shakespeare reference in the title, All My Sins Remembered. I'm not going to do all of Hamlet's soliloquy from Act 3, Scene 1, but just realize that I know it like by heart. I can do it right now, I swear. But it's also like a minute and a half long, and I'm gonna wrap up this video here. But this one, it's like not like I said, it's a super fast read. This guy has to like fight to escape his own, not escape, but like fighting is like the only thing that he can do. He's like this like big dude, and he's like uses that like one skill to sort of like he has no other prospects except that to sort of like escape his home planet and sort of explore the universe. It's not a bad book. I'm actually enjoying it, but it's nothing like Joe Haldeman's his most famous book, The Forever War, which is one of my favorite books of all time. And you wouldn't I'm gonna say this, even if you don't even if you're not like a military science fiction person, and I wasn't before I read The Forever War, going into it hey, do you want to read this military sci-fi book? No, I don't. But it's so good. You have to read it. It's one of my favorite books of all time. And and it's one of the only books that I think I would read again. And that's honestly saying something, because out of the 1,200 books that I've read, the books that I've read more than once, I maybe less than 20, 25. But The Forever War would be one of them. It's that good. So that was the 13 books that I read last month. I'm probably going to read about the same number of books this month. I've also got an insanely busy month social media wise. I'm basically man, this is the plan so far. I've been working the last few days to sort of set this up and make it happen. In September, I'll be posting about 1,200 individual pieces of content across all my social media platforms. I'm basically going all out on this, scaling up production, output, everything like that. It's all books, discipline, business, a little bit of fitness and motivation, stuff like that, all that stuff. But one of my better videos, I think, at least the most information packed, it covers the 7 biggest problems that most people have when it comes to reading, and then I offer 38 of my expert solutions to help solve it. And so that is this video right here. I might decide to put it up there, but I'll see you back here for the next video, and hey, happy reading.
To do something great, sacrifice is a part of it. It's just the start of it. You can't start and quit. You have to harness this, cause energy is bliss. And when I swing, I miss, but then I swing and hit. So I'ma swing again and I'ma swing